Exposed. 7 sinister warnings from a haunted pyramid guide you must discover before entering. The screen flickered in the dim light of Clara's living room, casting eerie shadows that danced along the walls. Her heart raced as she read the headline over and over again. Exposed. 7 sinister warnings from a haunted pyramid guide you must discover before entering. It was too late to ignore it. Late-night exhaustion mixed with desperation for a miracle. And all she could think about was their mounting bills. The weight of her husband's absence pressing harder with each passing moment. Clara didn't want to believe in the chilling words of the message that buzzed on her phone. But deep down, she felt the pull of something sinister lurking behind the promise of ancient knowledge. The unknown number didn't faze her. She felt the energy, the urgency. A tired sigh left her lips as her fingers tapped on the link, eager to discover secrets that could turn around her life. Little did she know, sharing it with Emma would unleash a force they couldn't control. That night, as Clara dove deeper into the dark mysteries of the guide, the air thickened, crawling on her skin like 1,000 icy fingers. An unsettling chill ignited every instinct in her. In the corners of her living room, shadows flickered, hinting at something lurking just beyond her view. A sense of dread nestled in her chest, tightening its grip with every creak of the old house. She tried to dismiss it, convincing herself it was all in her head. Yet the bathroom mirror, once crystal clear, now bore strange symbols that seemed to mock her confusion. Just as she registered the first strokes of despair, Clara rushed to Emma's room. Her daughter's breath was uneven, deeply asleep yet caught in the grip of nightmares. "Mom, they mean something we can't ignore." Emma's murmurs echoed in Clara's mind, sending waves of unease crashing against her resolve. Was it just her imagination, or had the relentless weight of grief pushed her family into uncharted territory? The fog of fear wrapped around their home like an inescapable shroud. When Clara approached the authorities, their dismissive chuckles pierced her hope. "Urban legend," one officer remarked, rolling his eyes as though she were gullible to even set foot in their station. "Just folklore." But Clara felt it, an electric compulsion that gripped both mother and daughter, transforming their suburban sanctuary into a house of horrors. Outside, Mr. Langston, the elderly neighbor with the unsettling gaze, watched them from the shadows, a grin slicing across his face that twisted her stomach. What did he know? Caught between anxiety and anger, Clara felt the isolation deepen with each day that stretched before them, every routine slipping further into unease as the shadows in their home grew more pronounced. The symbols whispered warnings in Emma's nightmares. Gasping, Clara reached for her daughter one night, her heart pounding. The chill had escalated into a tangible fear. Power flickered in and out, darkness creeping in on them like old memories. Suddenly, a power outage wrenched silence over everything, the house trembling with an eerie vibration that echoed against the walls. Then came the footsteps, soft, deliberate, coming closer. Clara gripped an old photograph she'd found buried beneath fallen papers, a link to their family's dark history, its edges frayed. Was it a warning? Or a taunt? Heart racing, she knew something had to give. As the knock came at the door, a hush fell over the house. Tiny slivers of hope crashed against the tidal wave of dread. She wasn't ready for the answer that awaited her. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Tension hung thick in the air as Clara inched toward the door. Was it the world outside that terrified her, or the sinister truth awaiting her within? One thing was clear: the past had come knocking, and this time, it bore secrets that challenged everything she thought she knew. Clara's hand trembled as she reached for the doorknob. She could hear her own heartbeat, a relentless drum echoing in the silence. The knock came again, louder this time, reverberating through the hollow halls of the house. A feeling of dread washed over her. Was it her imagination, Or did the shadows shift closer, inching like predators, eager for their moment? Taking a deep breath, she willed her fingers to turn the knob. The air felt electric, crackling with an ominous energy. Just as the door creaked open, the dim light from the porch revealed a figure standing there tall and cloaked in darkness. "Hello, Clara," came the voice, smooth yet chilling, slicing through the air like a knife. It was Mr. Langston. "What do you want?" she asked, surprised by the waver in her voice. Her instincts screamed at her to slam the door, to retreat back into safety. Yet the dread rooted her feet to the spot. He stepped into the light, revealing his gaunt features. A sickly grin spread across his face, showcasing teeth that seemed too sharp for a simple neighbor. "You know about the guide, don't you?" His eyes flickered with an unsettling fire, as if he could see right through her fears. Clara's mind raced. How could he possibly know? Desperation pulled at her as she demanded, "What do you know about it?" Behind him, shadows in the yard loomed and eclipsed the light. A gust of wind rattled the leaves, carrying with it whispers that seemed to call Clara by name. She hesitated, a sense of foreboding curling around her throat. "You've awakened something," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Something ancient, something that crawls in the dark." The corners of his mouth twitched. "And now it's watching you." The weight of his warning sunk deep into her stomach, like a heavy stone. "This is just folklore. It's not real," she insisted. Though her voice wavered, he let out a low chuckle, which turned into a cackle that echoed down the street, sending shivers racing down her spine. "Now, Clara, folklore has roots in truth. The symbols, the dreams, they hold power you cannot begin to understand. You've taken the first step, and there's no turning back." Each word felt like a tightening coil around her heart. She glanced over her shoulder, half expecting to see Emma standing there, wide-eyed with fear. But she wasn't. It was just an empty house, shadows flickering like reflections of her worst nightmares. "Where's your daughter?" Langston asked. A predatory glint shone in his eye as he leaned closer, his presence palpable. He thrived on her dread. Clara stepped back, feeling the familiar weight of isolation. "Get away from my family," she shouted, her courage flickering like a candle in the wind. Mr. Langston straightened, eyes narrowing. "Your family is part of this curse now, whether you like it or not." He took a step back, the darkness swallowing him momentarily before he turned, slowly walking away. "Find the guide, Clara, or lose them both with that." He melted into the night, leaving Clara breathless and paralyzed with fear. She rushed back into the house, bracing against the door as though it could shield her from the horrors unleashed. The air felt heavier, as if the walls themselves pressed in as Clara raced down the hallway to Emma's room. The symbols whispered louder now, filling her mind with their echoes. She flung open the door. "Emma!" she cried, the weight of darkness pooling in her gut. But the room was empty. The bed was unmade, the curtains fluttering eerily in the night breeze. The mirror, now reflecting nothing but shadows, caught Clara's eye. Her heart plummeted. A faint shape could be seen in the glass. A figure stood behind her. Clara spun around, but the space was empty. Just silence, broken only by the rhythmic tapping of something. Something trying to come in. What had she finally awakened? It was only the beginning, but Clara felt the pulse of dread thundering in her ears. A chilling prelude to the horror that waited just outside her grasp. The silence in the room thickened, tightening around Clara like a noose. Her breath came quick and shallow as she grasped the door frame for support. The tapping grew louder, rhythmic and insistent, as if something was trying to break through. She turned back to the mirror, her heart hammering like a frightened bird trapped in a cage. The figure was still there, that flickering silhouette in the glass. Clara squinted, desperate to make out any details, but the reflection shimmered, shifting as if the glass was alive. She felt a shiver creep up her spine. It was a warning or perhaps a plea. "Emma?" But there was no answer. Just the tapping, now accompanied by a low growl that seemed to vibrate through the floorboards beneath her feet. That sound, relentless and haunting, clawed at her nerves. "Stop it," Clara shouted into the empty space, her voice breaking as panic surged. She whipped around once more, expecting the unseen figure to leap at her, to emerge from the shadows that clung to every corner of the room. Yet nothing greeted her. Nothing but the oppressive darkness that felt more alive than before. Clara backed away from the mirror and thought about finding Emma. She needed to search every room in the house. But the feeling of dread, that suffocating weight, tethered her to the spot. What if the whispers were true? What if she was being watched? Taking a shaky step toward the hallway, the flicker of movement from the corner of her eye caught her attention. When she turned, she felt as if the very walls were breathing, their rhythm matching the frantic beat of her heart. The whispers thickened, weaving through the air with a malicious glee. They were echoing Mr. Langston's words, taunting her. "You've awoken something." Clara shook her head, her instincts screaming dread. She had to act. She had to find the guide before it was too late. With a sudden burst of determination, she sprinted into the hallway, the shadows swirling behind her, as if eager to consume her. "Emma!" she shouted, but her voice felt swallowed by the dim light of the house. "Where are you?" As she reached each door, she flung them open, desperation clawing at her. The bathroom empty, the guest room silent. The attic door loomed before her. A flickering bulb cast an eerie glow, its light sputtering like a dying flame. On tiptoe, Clara approached the door, her hand hovering over the knob, hesitating as the whispers turned into mocking laughter. "Just open, Clara. You're curious, aren't you?" In a split second, she turned the knob and yanked it open. The attic was a fortress of forgotten memories, cluttered with translucent memories and dust-covered furniture. Moonlight spilled through a small window, illuminating the cobwebs that danced like ghosts in the air. Clara took a breath and stepped inside. The air was stale, the kind thick with secrets. Her eyes roamed the room, landing on a trunk half hidden beneath a pile of old blankets. She reached for it almost instinctively. The whispers grew fainter, the shadows retreating as if they had lost their power in the presence of whatever lay inside. When she pried open the trunk, a rush of cold air escaped, making her shiver. Inside, she found an assortment of objects, ancient artifacts, dusty books, symbols etched in worn leather. But one item caught her eye. An old, crumbling map, marked with strange symbols she recognized from her nightmares. Clara's fingers brushed over the surface, and a feeling surged through her, both electric and terrifying. This was it. This was the guide that Mr. Langston spoke of. But as she pulled it free, a loud crash sounded from downstairs. Her heart stopped. What now? Had someone entered her home? "Emma!" she screamed, fear twisting in her gut. She clutched the map tightly, every instinct urging her to run, to hide. Whatever had been unleashed was coming for them. And now, she had no choice but to confront the darkness threatening to engulf them both. As Clara stepped out of the attic and toward the stairs, the shadows began to shift again, creeping along the walls, intertwining, and swirling, forming shapes that seemed to move with a life of their own. The tapping transformed into heavy footsteps, each resonating with a chilling finality. She could hear whispers, "They are coming." Was it too late? What had she awakened, and would she find Emma in time? The door slamming echoed throughout the house, the sound reverberating in her bones. Clara had yet to learn the true cost of curiosity, but soon enough, the reckoning would arrive, and with it the answer to her most dreadful question. Who or what was truly waiting for her beyond the shadows? Clara's breath caught in her throat as the heavy footsteps grew closer, each thud matching the pounding of her heart. She pressed her back against the wall, willing herself to merge into the shadows as they danced around her. The map felt like a brand, scorching her palm with its secrets. She had to make a decision: stay and confront whatever horror was coming down the stairs, or find Emma. "Emma!" Her voice cracked, nearly drowned by the darkness encasing her. The shadows twisted, curling around her legs like cold fingers, urging her forward, deeper into the house, into the horror. Fighting against the primal instinct to flee, Clara tiptoed towards the staircase. Each step felt like a betrayal of her racing pulse, but she had no choice. She had to know, if she could just catch a glimpse of what was moving below, maybe then she'd have a chance to prepare. She leaned over the baluster, peering into the murky depths of the living room. The sight rooted her to the spot. The room was empty, yet the atmosphere thickened as if occupied by something unseen, a malevolence that clawed at her chest. In the center, the front door swung slightly, an ominous creak echoing in the silence. Then she saw it. A figure lurked just beyond the threshold, just outside her field of vision. Panic gripped her. Was it Emma hiding? She strained to hear anything, to catch a muffled whisper. Something, anything that would assure her she wasn't alone. But only the low growl returned, deeper and more resonant, as if the house itself had become a living creature, exhaling sinister breath. She shivered. Gathering her courage, Clara took a step down. It was a mistake. The creak underfoot was like an alarm in the stillness. The growl intensified, vibrating through the walls. The figure at the door shifted, a dark shape blending with the night. Clara, not Emma's voice, but something distorted and twisted, echoing in a way that sent chills cascading down her spine. The hairs on her neck bristled. She stumbled back, clutching the map, feeling the pull of its energy. There had to be a way to use it, a way to protect herself and save Emma. The whispers surged again, rising like a tide, promising her knowledge, power, answers. You seek the truth? Then come know. Clara shouted, frustration mingling with fear. She wouldn't be swayed. She turned abruptly and dashed back down the hall. But a flash of movement caught her eye. The attic door, which she thought shut tight, swung ajar, and from it came a wraith, a silhouette wreathed in shadows that seemed to bend and shift around it. Leave her alone, Clara cried, her voice trembling with resolve. The wraith paused, twisting its head as if considering her words. Its form coalesced into a more human shape but with eyes like voids, drawing her in, suffocating her will. Join us, it rasped, voice like broken glass. Join the awakening. Clara's heart raced, and her instincts screamed to run, to flee from the darkness grasping at her. Yet, in the grip of terror, she sensed something, an insatiable curiosity, a connection tugging at her. Emma, she desperately called again, the name reverberating within her like a lifeline, a prayer. Suddenly, the figure lunged toward her with the speed of midnight, and Clara bolted, sprinting toward the nearest door, praying she would find Emma on the other side or at least an escape. As she yanked the door open, she stumbled into a room she hadn't noticed before, now lit by a flickering candle, the shadows illuminating faint drawings on the walls. Each symbol pulsed with energy, radiating a warning she could feel clawing at her mind. Clara froze. They weren't just warnings. They were connections to the map, the items from the trunk pieces of a puzzle she had only begun to understand. And off in the corner of her vision, a fleeting shadow darted away, leading deeper into the darkness. No, she cried, her thoughts racing. What had she released? The pounding footsteps grew louder, closing in on her, and Clara felt the weight of dread settle, heavier than it had ever been. She had to make a choice. Face the wraith or trust the path illuminated by the drawings, knowing they might lead to the truth or doom. What would she choose as the darkness loomed ever closer? Clara stood at the threshold of the unknown, caught between the dark pull of the wraith and the cryptic drawings illuminating the room. Her heart pounded in her ears, drowning out the growling footsteps that drew near. She glanced at the symbols on the walls, frantic to decipher their meanings, but their complexity only added to her desperation. Each drawing seemed to pulse in time with her racing heart. One symbol in particular caught her eye. It resembled the map, twisted and altered, like a dark version of the world she knew. Could it be suggesting a way to bind the creature? To trap it? Before she could think any further, the attic door creaked open wider, and the wraith slithered through, its form darkening the flickering light. It moved like smoke, drawing closer, eyes like black holes promising only despair. Clara felt an icy grip wrap around her throat, choking her breath. Join us, the wraith whispered, voice sharp and cold. No, Clara shouted, her voice suddenly fierce. She clutched the map as if it could protect her. With one desperate lunge, she dashed toward the wall opposite the door, searching for another way out, another escape. The shadows danced, morphing into grotesque shapes that taunted her. The room felt smaller, constricting. But then, her fingers brushed against the edge of a drawing. The lines were etched deeper here, almost like a path. Maybe if she followed it, the pounding footsteps were deafening now. Clara moved in closer, tracing the lines with her fingertips. Each stroke felt electric, igniting something deep within her. As she followed the path, she felt a surge of warmth replaced the oppressive cold. Suddenly, the wraith lunged, its shadowy form distorting as it reached for her. Clara gasped, her instincts kicking in. She turned and sprinted down the illuminated symbols, and to her surprise, they glowed brighter, almost as if beckoning her forward. Clara! The voice of the figure echoed behind her, twisting like a serpent through the air. It felt familiar, a terrible echo of something she had once known. Her heart twisted. Was it Emma who had become ensnared? Clara raced deeper into the designs, the pulse of energy guiding her. They formed a swirling vortex that engulfed her as she passed, weaving her into a different world. She felt the air thin around her, but she pressed on, each step a defiance against the darkness pursuing her. A loud thud shook the walls as she stumbled to a wider space. The symbols coalesced into a circular shape beneath her feet, a complex pattern that hummed with a strange life. But there was no time to catch her breath. The growl was now a roar, seething with rage as the wraith followed, shadows attempting to grasp her. Clara stepped inside the circle, feeling a rush of energy cut through the fear. It flooded her veins with a warmth that felt foreign but promising. She could sense a power brewing around her, wrapping her in an aura of light. The wraith reached the edge of the symbols, hissing, its form sputtering like flames snuffed by water. "Release her," it screeched, but something within Clara hardened. She began to chant words that spilled from her lips like ancient magic, words that came from the very essence of the map. They twisted in the air and reverberated against the walls. The wraith faltered, unable to cross the boundary. Its shadow stretched and pulled like an angry tide, desperate to break through. With each word, she felt a connection deepen. Emma's name pulsed between them, an anchor against the dark. But just as the barrier shimmered to life, tearing it away from the house, Clara faced another choice. Keep chanting to strengthen the light, or turn back to find Emma and risk it all. "Clara, don't leave me," the distorted voice cried from beyond, now mingled with desperation. And in that moment, she knew the truth was tangled within the shadows. "Will I find you?" she whispered to the darkness, knowing she had to make a choice quickly. But time was slipping away as a flash of blinding light erupted, illuminating the room and severing Clara from the wraith. Would it be enough to save her friend, or would it seal their doom? All she could do was reach for the light as the darkness threatened to consume it whole. Clara's eyes squinted against the blinding light, an overwhelming surge of energy pulsating around her as reality shifted. The air grew thick with tension, heavy enough to suffocate. A whirlwind of light enveloped her, spinning her further away from the wraith's claws. But where it would land her was unknown. Time distorted, stretching endless seconds into eternity. Breaths became shallow as her mind began to unravel with confusion. She felt as though she was floating through a void between worlds, where fear was the only constant. The light fizzled and cracked. She struggled to hold onto what little hope it offered. And then thud! Clara landed hard on the cold ground. The light vanished, leaving her in a dim, murky cavern. Shadows elongated against the jagged rock walls, twisting grotesquely like the wraith that had chased her. A chill slithered down her spine, and instinctively, she stepped back. "Clara?" A shaky voice called from somewhere deeper in the cavern. One she recognized but dared not hope belonged to Emma. "Emma!" Clara shouted, the name echoing against the damp stone. She spun around, the pitch blackness swallowing her whole. She couldn't let despair sink its claws into her. She had to find her friend. Each step was agonizing, the damp ground squelching beneath her feet. The shadows writhed, creeping closer as a low growl rumbled from somewhere far ahead. "Stay close to the light," a faint whisper coaxed from the depths, the kind of haunting echo that both beckoned and warned. Clara's heart raced, pounding in her chest. She raised her shaking hands to guide her forward, searching for any flicker of illumination. Symbols began to dance faintly on the walls. More cryptic messages like faint ghosts of the attic map. She pressed on, desperate to decipher an exit or better yet Emma's location. "Clara, help me." The voice was faint, drifted through the darkness like wisps of smoke, coiled around her, urging her forward. She stumbled into a larger chamber, and her blood ran cold. Scattered remnants of once living shadows formed twisted sculptures along the walls, bodies caught in an eternal scream, their faces contorted in terror. She felt bile rise in her throat, the realization that this place could consume her. "Clara, please." Emma's voice pierced the suffocating silence, leading her deeper into the nightmare. The memory of the wraith chilled her bones. It was close. The chamber twisted before her, impossible angles shifting like a fever dream. Clara raced toward the sound, her breath hitching as she realized the walls were closing in. The symbols pulsed, glowing just enough to light her path, a sign of power. Then she saw her. Emma lay on a cold altar in the center of the room, trapped by thick tendrils of darkness. Clara rushed forward, desperation lending strength to her limbs. "I'm coming, Emma." But the shadows surged forward, coiling around her ankles, dragging fiercely at her. Clara gasped, shaking her leg free and roaring. Not this time. She charged through, breaking the grasp of despair. With each step closer, the air thickened, crackling with tension. The wraith's growl rose to a crescendo, mixing with Emma's cries. It was coming. Clara felt it like an icy breath on her neck. "Clara!" Emma cried as the dark tendrils tightened, pulling her deeper into their grasp. Clara reached out, gripping her friend's hand, pulling at the darkness with all her might. But the shadows didn't relent. They lashed out, angry whispers filling the air, telling stories of betrayal, loss, and longing. Clara could feel them, each one a soul trapped, misled by promises of power. A sudden flash of light flickered in Clara's mind. The symbols, a way to rescue Emma. She had been drawn here for a reason. They were meant to empower her, to sever the darkness's grasp. Clara shook off the panic. She recalled the chant, pulling the words from the depths of her memory. She began to recite the incantation, her voice growing stronger. The shadows writhed in agony. Shrieks bounced off the chamber's walls, mixing with Emma's urgent pleas. Would it work? Would she be able to bind the wraith, freeing them both? Light erupted from Clara's fingertips as she cast the symbols before them. The shadows shuddered, and the room shook violently. But would it be enough to save her friend before the darkness consumed them? The wraith's voice hissed like 1,000 serpents. It was close now. Join us. With trembling hands and a heart filled with fierce determination, Clara realized she was at the precipice of a choice that could seal their fate forever. "Are you ready?" she whispered to Emma, knowing the truth of that moment. The darkness loomed behind her, threatening to devour whatever hope remained. And then it all stopped. Silence fell like a curtain around them. Would Clara's choice rescue them or doom them both? The answer hovered in the air, alive and electric. The stillness was suffocating. Clara's heart thudded painfully in her chest, each beat echoing in the quiet. She could feel the weight of every shadow, pressing in closer, threatening to suffocate her. It was as if the darkness itself held its breath. Waiting. Time felt different here, like thick molasses stretching the moment beyond comprehension. Clara held Emma's hand tightly, searching for a flicker of light in the pitch-black gloom, a sign that all would be well. But the shadows coiled, whispering a language that sent chills rippling through her skin, urging her to give in. "Please, Clara." Emma's voice broke through the silence, laced with fear and desperation. It stirred something primal in Clara, igniting a fierce need to fight. She was not going to let the darkness take her friend. She couldn't. With trembling lips, Clara continued the chant, her voice rising against the oppressive silence. The symbols pulsed with a flickering energy, cascading light throughout the chamber like distant stars being born. Shadows shrieked in protest, twisting violently as they clung to Emma. "Clara, it hurts," Emma gasped, her face twisted in agony. The tendrils were tightening, constricting around her like a merciless serpent, draining her strength. Cold sweat trickled down Clara's back. Was the incantation working? "Hold on, Emma. Just a little longer." Clara screamed over the chaos, her fingers flexing against the cold stone beneath her. The darkness writhed at her feet, angry and relentless, lashing out like hungry beasts. Clara clenched her teeth and pressed on, her voice faltering but unwavering. "Aglai, Amaris." Urim, the words felt foreign on her tongue, ancient and powerful. With every syllable, the air crackled. The shadows screamed louder, ricocheting off the walls, howling like a storm. Clara could almost feel the weight of the Wraith's ire. It was close. Suddenly, the altar shuddered violently, as if the very essence of the chamber was rebelling against her efforts. Clara staggered back. Her eyes darted around for escape, but the shadows grew like a tangible fog, thickening in ferocity and malice. Behind her, she could hear the Wraith whispering its promises, taunting her resolve. "Join us, embrace the darkness," it hissed. The voice slick with the promise of power. Clara's heart raced. Desperation surged through her veins, amplifying her fear. She thought of Emma, her laughter, their memories. How could she ever face a world without her? Swallowing the fear, she cried out the last line of the incantation, summoning everything she had within. With a blinding flash, light exploded from her fingertips. The power soared through the chamber, erupting and dancing wildly, like lightning captured in her hands. The tendrils recoiled, shrieking as they dissolved into ash. But just as hope surged, Clara felt the ground beneath her shake. A deep rumble echoed through the chamber, sending crumbling rock and dust flying into the air. The Wraith's growl thundered, rumbling through the walls like an earthquake. This wasn't finished. "Clara, it's too much," Emma screamed as waves of darkness surged back, more relentless than before. The chamber began to collapse around them. Clara tried to pull Emma free, but the force of the Wraith was unyielding. "Let go. We have to go." "Where?" Emma shouted, her grip slipping. Clara's vision blurred with tears. This was it. This choice could break them. "Together," Clara gasped, and she remembered the symbols glinting off the walls, revealing a hidden path, a portal shining with pale light. Would it lead them out or deeper into the abyss? Desperation clawed at her gut. With one last surge, she hurled herself toward the light, dragging Emma with her. Darkness exploded in a final roar, trying to reclaim them. Clara could feel the Wraith's icy breath against her skin, but she pushed on, eyes locked on the glow. "How do we now?" Clara shouted, just as the Wraith lunged, its shadowy form reaching for them. Would the light save them from the chaos, or was it a trap deeper than the darkness? The escape loomed ahead, but with it came an unforgiving uncertainty that promised dread. Light enveloped them. Clara and Emma were pulled through the portal, a rush of energy surging around them. For a split second, Clara felt weightless, as if they were being lifted above the chaos. But the sensation didn't last. They landed hard onto cold, uneven ground that scraped against Clara's palms. She gasped, rolling over to find Emma beside her, panting, eyes wide with fear. "Where are we?" The air here felt different, thick, electric, charged with a looming dread. Clara squinted through the dim twilight, trying to understand their surroundings. They stood in a vast chamber, much like the one they had just escaped, but colder, more oppressive. The walls were lined with ancient hieroglyphs that seemed to pulse with a life of their own, shifting under her gaze. "What just happened?" Emma whispered, her voice trembling. Clara shook her head, trying to catch her breath. "I think we made it out, but what is this place?" "Something's not right," Emma said. She looked around nervously, her eyes flickering to shadows that danced along the walls. A low hum washed over them, like a distant chant rising and falling, seeping into the marrow of Clara's bones. Its source was invisible, yet all around them. The vibration grew in intensity, a warning, an invitation. "We need to keep moving," she urged, pulling Emma to her feet. "We can't stay here." As they moved deeper into the chamber, the shadows twisted, weaving themselves like dark smoke, forming shapes that were almost human. Clara's skin crawled as she felt eyes upon them, lurking in the corners of the room. Were they being watched? Or was it the remnants of their fears manifesting? What if this was part of the Wraith's trap? Emma whispered, glancing over her shoulder, her pale face shining with terror. "What if we're not alone?" "Stop it. We can't think like that," Clara snapped, more for her own reassurance than Emma's. But the seed of doubt had taken root, squirming inside her chest. They stumbled upon an altar, much like the one from before but wrought with more intricate designs and embedded with stones that glimmered under an unseen light. Clara dared to approach, feeling an irresistible pull towards it, the urge to unlock the secrets contained within. "Clara, wait!" Emma's voice was taut with worry, pulling on her sleeve. But curiosity drove her on. Clara reached out, her fingers brushing against the cool surface. The moment she did, the stones flared to life, radiating blinding energy that shot through her arm. Symbols exploded into clarity, words she could nearly understand flowing through her mind, whispering promises of power and hidden knowledge. Suddenly, shadows surged, flooding forward like a tidal wave, thicker than before. Clara stumbled back, heart racing. "We need to go now," Emma cried out as the shadows coiled around her ankles, dragging her down. "Clara! Help! Hold on!" Clara shouted, lunging forward, grabbing Emma's arm. The shadows fought back, clawing at the two of them. Clara felt her grip slip as darkness threatened to consume them both. "Clara!" Emma screamed, panic radiating in waves. "We're not going to make it." The shadows intensified, swirling like a violent storm, striking at Clara's resolve. She could hear the Wraith's whispers in the chaos, their taunts burrowing beneath her skin. They were nothing without her. She couldn't let them win. Another chant. "Try again," Emma urged, her voice wavering, desperation clawing into every word. Clara hesitated. Would it work? Could she command the light again? Wouldn't it be futile? But with Emma's terrified eyes locked onto hers, she knew she had no choice. She opened her mouth, the words spilling forth, burning with urgency. Then, all at once, the chamber erupted. The balance shifted, and Clara could finally see. The shadows weren't just enemies, they were prisoners of their own despair. She had to choose, but before she could contemplate her next move, a blast of cold air filled the chamber, freezing her breath in her throat. There, at the far end of the room, loomed a figure shrouded in darkness. It stood still, flickering between the shadowy forms, its eyes glowing like dying embers. "Welcome," the figure hissed, resentful yet inviting. "You've wandered far into my domain. Do you wish to know your true fate?" The darkness pulsed around Clara and Emma, the looming figure inviting them deeper into the nightmare. Would they resist this time, or would curiosity guide them into an even greater terror? The figure shifted, its outline blurring in and out like a flickering candle. Clara's heart drummed in her chest, fear clawing at her throat. She felt Emma's grip tighten on her arm, the warmth of her friend a fragile anchor in this chilling expanse. "What do you want from us?" Clara demanded, trying to project strength even as the shadows writhed around them. "From you?" The figure leaned closer, its voice a serpent's hiss. "You've already given me everything, your light, your fear, but what remains is the choice, yours or hers." "Don't," Emma pleaded, panic cracking her voice. "Clara, we can't trust it." "Trust?" The figure chuckled, a sound like nails scraping against stone. "Trust is a word reserved for those who believe in the light. Here only darkness reigns." Clara could feel the energy of the chamber swirling, feeding off their turmoil. She stole a glance at Emma, whose expression was a mix of terror and anger. "What do we do?" her friend whispered. "We fight," Clara breathed, gripping Emma's hand firmly, as if connecting through sheer will was enough to cut through the shadows. The memory of their previous chant buzzed in her mind, but doubt gnawed at her. Would it be enough against whatever entity stood before them? Chant with me, Clara instructed, her voice steadying. But as tears glistened in Emma's eyes, uncertainty crept back in. This is how it ends. We can't win, Emma shouted. But we can't give in, Clara urged, urging her forward. The shadows hissed, urging them to falter. The figure's eyes blazed brighter, feeding off their despair. Join me. Embrace the darkness. You have no idea of the power you could wield. The figure rasped, drawing closer, the air thick and suffocating. Clara felt the swell of its influence, shimmering promises of strength and revelations. But with each passing moment, she could sense the danger lurking beneath its sly charm. Don't listen, Emma insisted, trembling. It's a trap, is it? The figure interjected, its mouth curling into a twisted smile. Or are you terrified of your own potential? Clara's resolve began to falter, the whispers curling into her mind. She pictured the shadows spreading, the wraiths feeding on her doubts, and the altar glowing. This was their key. They had to channel the light not just to survive but to fight back. Clara, Emma cried, drowning in apprehension. Think there must be a way out. The figure leaned closer, extending a hand. Coldness radiated from it, wrapping around Clara's heart like a vice. The only way out is through me. Let the darkness in. Let it free you from fear. The shadows twisted tighter, and Clara couldn't breathe. It took everything in her not to give in, to not be swept away by that seductive power. But if they turned back now, would they be lost to the darkness forever? Together, Clara shouted, her voice cutting through the fog of despair. We can do this. Together, Emma echoed, finding strength in her conviction. They began to chant, voices trembling but growing stronger. The walls pulsated as glyphs illuminated, brightening the room until it felt like they were igniting. Clara felt the power coursing through her, pushing against the shadows, but the figure roared, engulfing them in chaos. Darkness danced ferociously, the shadows scrambling to reclaim their hold on the girls, and just when Clara thought they would be consumed, a blinding light shot through the chamber like a bolt of thunder, unraveling the shadows like smoke in the wind. Hold on, she screamed, clutching Emma's hand as the ground beneath them shifted violently. But the figure shrieked, rage echoing. You can't escape your fate. You will return. Clara's vision blurred, the room spinning as they were pulled apart. The last thing she saw was the figure looming above them, tendrils of darkness stretching out, grasping desperately as they vanished through a shimmering void as the world went dark around them. A thought clawed at Clara's mind. What if there was more than one way to lose? A cold laugh echoed in the void, chilling her to the bone. Welcome back, sisters, the darkness hissed, wrapping unnoticed fingers around their reality. And with that, Clara and Emma knew their nightmare was just beginning. Would they dare to face their fate once more? The world felt heavy as the darkness thinned, dropping Clara and Emma onto familiar ground. The cabin stood tall, bathed in soft light as dawn crept over the horizon. A moment of disbelief washed over Clara, fueled by fear and uncertainty. They had escaped, but what had they truly left behind? Are we safe? Emma asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Her eyes darted around, searching for shadows. Clara felt her heart thud like a hammer. Had it all been a dream? Or was this another layer of their nightmare? I think so, Clara replied, not quite believing her own words. Deep down, she could feel that familiar sense of foreboding settling in her chest, a tightness that wouldn't let go as they stepped outside. The fresh air tasted sweet, but Clara couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. She looked around, trying to find the peace that had once surrounded their home. But everything felt different, almost surreal. The trees stood still, watching them with an unnerving silence. Clara, do you think Emma started? But a chill swept through the air, cutting her off. The words hung there, heavy with unasked questions. What if the darkness they had fought wasn't just a shadow? I don't know, Emma, Clara said, fingers tightening around her friend's hand. But we need to make sure it doesn't find us again. The urgency in her voice was stark against the quiet dawn. Maybe we can forget about it. Emma suggested hesitantly, the hope glinting in her eyes. Start fresh? A lump formed in Clara's throat. The thought was naive and comforting all at once, but a part of her knew the truth. We can't ignore what happened. We have to confront it together. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed from the edge of the forest, sending a flock of birds scattering into the air. Clara jumped at the sound, and Emma's breath hitched in fear. Did you hear that? Emma asked, her eyes wide. It's just the trees shifting, Clara assured her, but her heart raced like a freight train. Moments like this brought back memories of their harrowing journey. The way the shadows had whispered their names, how the wraith had attempted to lure them into despair. Determined, Clara drew in a deep breath. Let us go inside and check the map again. Once back in the cabin, Clara retrieved the map from the trunk they had uncovered in the attic. Its delicate surface glowed softly in the light. They could both feel its energy, a promise they could wield their fears into something powerful. What if we connect with the symbols again? Emma proposed, her brow furrowing in concentration. That's it, Clara exclaimed, a thrill sparking in her chest. If we can strengthen the light, contain whatever darkness is left, it might keep it away for good. Can we do it here? Emma asked, her voice firm with clarity. Only one way to find out. Clara pressed her palms against the map, feeling the warmth radiate beneath her touch. The symbols began to shimmer as she and Emma spoke the incantation. With every word, golden light flared brighter, pulsing through the room. Shadows flickered and trembled in the corners, seemingly resisting the warmth but retreating against the growing power. Do you feel that? Emma gasped as the energy washed over them. Clara nodded, her pulse racing with empowerment. Then a fierce wind howled outside, rattling the windows, and a voice whispered on the edge of the storm. You cannot escape your fate. It resonated, familiar yet twisted into something darker, resonating through the walls. Clara clenched her jaw. No more. They pushed harder against the encroaching shadows, the light surging through the room until the darkness began to lift, retreating further back with each breath. In that moment, both girls felt themselves stand taller. The shadows weren't just something to fight. They were history, remnants of loss, fear entwined in their very beings. Together, they shouted, their voices a united force against the winds. The light erupted, shattering the oppressive weight of their past, filling the cabin with warmth and brightness. Clara felt it roll over her like a wave, cleansing and purifying. The shadows crumbled like ashes before a fire, dissipating into nothingness. In that instant, the cabin came alive with color and melody. The birds returned, singing sweetly with gratitude. Clara and Emma embraced, relief flooding over them like a cool breeze on a hot day. We did it, Emma exclaimed, laughter bubbling over. We actually did it. Tears brimmed in Clara's eyes as she smiled. We faced our fears and reclaimed our light. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them shifted deeper and more profound than before. They found solace in everyday moments, the air filled with warmth and laughter, light now a constant companion. But as dawn turned to dusk, Clara knew there would always be echoes of the past. Shadows might linger, but she also understood that light could guide them through. They had each other, and in their unity, they could face anything that came their way. And with that thought, Clara tucked the map away, rested easy knowing they forged their path, hand in hand, hearts beating as one. Now it's time for you to be part of this journey. You need to subscribe immediately to our channel, so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this incredible conclusion. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this amazing finale. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.